4 months, the 817-kilometer frontier separating Thailand and Cambodia was anything but a border. It was a battlefield. What began as localized skirmishes in July 2025 escalated twice into full-scale military confrontations, artillery barrages, airstrikes and rocket fire that left nearly 150 people dead and hundreds of thousands displaced. Troops remain deployed on both sides of the long-disputed border even now, and the ceasefire that stopped the second round of fighting, 20 days of clashes that neither U.S. intervention nor diplomatic pressure could halt, was agreed upon bilaterally without any external guarantee. For Southeast Asia, it was the most dangerous internal security crisis the region had seen in years. Then came Cebu. On the evening of May 7, 2026, on the sidelines of the 48th ASEAN Summit in the Philippines, the two countries' leaders sat across from each other for the first time since the violence began. The meeting between Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet was organized and attended by Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., whose government chairs ASEAN for 2026. It was not a peace deal, but it was, by any realistic measure, a turning point. This meeting was arranged by the Philippines as a way to provide its good offices in our capacity as chair of ASEAN for 2026 to Cambodia and Thailand in order to provide a meaningful space for constructive dialogue on their bilateral border issues. Marcos said at the joint press conference that followed, the choice of language was deliberate, good offices, not mediation, constructive dialogue, not negotiation. Every word was chosen to give both governments the political cover they needed to show up without appearing to concede anything. That cover mattered enormously. Inside Thailand, border security and sovereignty had become the defining political issues of the past year. Anutin had first become Prime Minister in September 2025 after his predecessor was removed from office in connection with her handling of the very same border conflict with Cambodia. He came to Cebu carrying the weight of a domestic audience that expected strength, not compromise. Cambodia's Hun Manet was in a similar position, having watched Bangkok unilaterally cancel the 2001 Memorandum of Understanding on overlapping maritime claims in the Gulf of Thailand just 2 days before the summit. Cambodia had immediately responded by activating a compulsory conciliation procedure under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, a legal move Phnom Penh had reportedly been preparing for 16 months in precise anticipation of exactly this scenario. It was, in short, an extraordinarily tense moment to attempt diplomacy. And yet it worked, at least enough to matter. Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul struck the first conciliatory note in public. Thailand and Cambodia are two neighboring countries. It is best we avoid conflict. It only brings losses and suffering, he said. Then he went further. Now is the time for us to look forward and walk this path together towards peace. Hun Manet said his discussions with Anutin focused on de-escalation and trust-building measures aimed at restoring and consolidating a functioning framework for lasting peace and normalized relations. He confirmed that Cambodia's foreign minister would carry those discussions forward in a way designed to deliver results, not simply preserve appearances. What came out of the room was more concrete than many expected. Both sides agreed to use UN SLOS as the key framework for future maritime negotiations and committed to gradually resuming discussions at all levels, including through the Joint Boundary Commission, the General Border Committee, and talks between foreign ministers, with the aim of generating mutual benefits. The mandate of the ASEAN Observer Team, the body responsible for monitoring and verifying ceasefire compliance along the border, was ended by 3 months through to July 2026, with the Philippines continuing as its coordinator. And critically, both sides agreed to task their foreign ministers with advancing practical confidence-building measures, starting with measures where we have common ground. Thailand no longer has MOU 44. Whatever discussions take place from now on, new rules will have to be agreed upon together. And Utin acknowledged a candid admission that the old framework was gone and that whatever came next would have to be built from scratch. That is both the promise and the challenge of what was agreed in Cebu. The summit produced a roadmap, not a resolution. Border Committee talks that were supposed to turn the ceasefire into a peace deal have been in abeyance since October. The Cebu meeting produced no new measures beyond extending the ASEAN observer team and an agreement to resume those stalled discussions. The hard work demarcating contested territory, negotiating maritime boundaries over a resource-rich 26,000 square kilometer overlap zone in the Gulf of Thailand, rebuilding trust between two militaries still facing each other across a disputed frontier, remains entirely ahead of them. But dismissing what happened in Cebu as merely symbolic would miss the point. The Cebu meeting did not resolve all differences, but it may have prevented them from escalating further. In a conflict where 2 rounds of fighting broke out within months of each other, preventing a third is not a small thing. Communication channels, military and diplomatic, have been formally reopened. Foreign ministers have been tasked. Bilateral mechanisms that the crisis suspended are now on track to resume. And both governments have, for the first time in months, publicly committed to peace in each other's presence. Marcos, for his part, ended the press conference with a message that captured the Philippine approach throughout, optimistic but restrained. We express our confidence in the ability of Cambodia and Thailand to resolve the matter amicably and to manage their border differences peacefully. The broader ASEAN Summit also produced outcomes that set the wider context for these talks. Leaders adopted a coordinated statement on the Middle East crisis, addressing energy supply disruptions and fuel price pressures affecting the region. A new ASEAN Maritime Center was endorsed to be established in the Philippines, strengthening the bloc's framework for maritime security and disaster response. And the Cebu Protocol was adopted, the first amendment to the ASEAN Charter since 2007, paving the way for Timor-Leste's full integration into the bloc. Leaders also unveiled a new Sail Rise resilience framework designed to help the region withstand future global shocks, whether from conflict, climate change, or economic disruption. Against that backdrop, the Thailand-Cambodia talks were more than a bilateral issue. They were a test of whether ASEAN itself still had the credibility and the will to hold its own members back from the edge. The answer, at least for now, is cautiously yes. The quiet mediation efforts in Cebu illustrated ASEAN's preference for dialogue over confrontation and its continuing role as a platform for preventive diplomacy. The Philippines' success in bringing both sides to the table without public pressure, dramatic announcements, or demands for concessions demonstrated that patient behind-the-scenes regional leadership can still produce real results. Whether it lasts is another question entirely. Troops remain at the border. The maritime dispute is legally more complex than ever. Nationalist sentiment in both countries has not gone away. And the next border incident, if it comes, could undo everything agreed in Cebu within hours. But for now, the guns are silent. The foreign ministers have their instructions. The border committees are being revived. And 2 leaders who had no reason to trust each other shook hands in a hotel in the Philippines and agreed to keep talking. In this part of the world, that is how peace is usually built, not in a single dramatic moment, but slowly, carefully, one conversation at a time.